We are the Nerdy Turtle Network.
Hello and welcome to this week's Impulse with Tony the Hitman Horton and Todd the Todd Father Holland. I'm going to be your host for this one. I am, of course, the Todd Father. And today we are going to continue with our Getting to Know You shows with the one, the only, Tony the Hitman Horton. Give him some gun smoke.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
All right, man. So, since we got rid of the hateful asshole first, now we're going to go with the stable, dependable father, pillar of his community. Let us know what you
Oh
multiple
boy.
decade comic veteran. Come on, man, show them why people should be listening to this show.
All right. Well, what do you want to know? Because if this is a get to know me session, so
Well, okay.
whatever it is.
I guess we'll start with I guess hell, we'll do the typical. Give them your geek cred. Why should people listen to you? I know, cause hell, I know where I met you. But
Well, I've been working in somewhat the field of pop culture for probably about, I'd say, 20 plus years. Um, I've always been a fan of it. I got started at a young age with my dad. My dad used it as a means for me to stay focused in school because I hated school as a young kid, pretty much. Um, the fun thing about it was, friends that I was making, but at the same time, I struggled with a lot of stuff comprehending, which later on we found out that I suffer from dyslexia. So, as a means to get me to focus more on school as a reward, my dad would get me Amazing Spider-Man comics. He would read those to me, at nighttime and whatnot, and it got me hooked on the characters, and I couldn't wait to see what happened, what was going to happen, the next adventure, what was going to happen next, and that was kind of his thing. Was like, well, you do this in school, you focus on this, and when the new comics come out, I tell you go pick them up, and we'll find out what happens next. And that's how my love for comics started.
really,
For Spider-Man anyway. But
okay,
it originally started with my older brothers. My older brothers were um, Thor fans. My older brother Carl was a big, Mighty Thor fan, and that was his go-to book. And he introduced me to Thor, Prince Namor, the Fantastic Four, and that's what really originally one of the favorite characters, one of my favorite characters that I was in awe with at the time was Prince Namor. And then later on, as my dad got me further into it, it became Spider-Man. So my original first two loves from Marvel characters were Prince Namor and then Spider-Man, and I'm still a huge Spider-Man fan. Um,
okay. I got a question. I know
huh?
I'm a little bit older than you. Did you
hmm
watch the Electric Company?
Oh yes, yes, I did. That was one of the things right there that I couldn't wait at a young age to watch was the Electric Company, and it came on certain times of the day, pretty much when you knew um, Spider Man was going to be a part of that.
Yep.
And once I got my feel of that, it was kind of like, oh, off to something else. But growing up in like the late '70s, early '80s, that was a good time to be a kid because you had cartoons pretty much for everything. The Incredible Hulk, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, Batman and the Super Seven, the Adventures of Superman. You had the Justice League,
Yeah,
which
Super
was
Friends.
Super Friends when we were coming up. Um, it was just a good time to be a kid. And if you were into anything that was related to, you know, superheroes or genres of action heroes, giant robots, soldiers, it was, you name it, they had it. Um, and I gravitated to pretty much all of it. And one of my older brothers at the time, he was heavily into it, and he was drawing these things, and I was like, "What?" So I was like, "Draw me this," and he was looking at me like, "Okay." Then draw me this, and he looked at me like, "Okay," and he's like, "You do know you can draw, right?" And I'm like, "Huh?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's a gift that pretty much everybody in this family's got. So what I'm gonna start doing is I'm gonna start drawing these things, and you're gonna start trying to draw these things that I'm drawing." And I'm like, "I can't do that. And he was like, "Well, yeah, you can. I started drawing at a young age. Your other brother started drawing at a young age. Your sister started drawing at a young age, and even your mom can draw." So I think I was probably around about 8, maybe 9 at that time
Hmm.
when I started asking my mom for color pencils and sketch pads, and that was like the one thing, as a kid, when you're in school, elementary school, they had like these Christmas parties, and then you asked these little kids would bring you like certain gifts, and you would bring them
Yep.
gifts and everything.
Yep.
At that time frame, the only thing that I was really wanting was color pencils and paper. I couldn't have enough of it. And, it's like people were like bringing me actually sketch pads and color pencils to these little like Christmas get-togethers and stuff. And it
Yeah.
was like they were just bringing them because they wanted me to sit there in the classroom and draw. It's like, you can have these, but I want you to draw me this. And I'm like, what? You
That
know,
that really that really brings me back because I don't think I ever got a gift worth a damn in those things growing up. Back in the
oh,
day.
I did. I mean, we all had you know, the little golden books. That was like the one little thing that you started out with the golden books, and then later on it gravitated into like you start pulling people's names, and it was like either a Hot Wheel, a GI Joe, or if you remember those little trucks that were like $4.99 and $5.99,
Yeah.
those little stomper trucks, which you put the battery in.
Yep.
That was like one of the things that you was hoping to get, or those little back penny racers, the little car that you put a penny in, and does all kind of crazy little flips and stuff.
I think the best something I ever got out of one of those one time was like this like cheap ass camera from the '70s that I can remember. I remember how like I used it one time and like it had a flash bulb and shit. And I don't think I ever actually took a picture or got anything to. I know I didn't get nothing developed from it, but I think that was like the best something I ever got. And it was like 90% of that stuff was like just crap. It was literally just like dollar store crap.
Yeah,
Hell, I
but
remember
yeah,
hell. I gave some joker like a Staria. Was that a Star? Yeah, the
yeah,
Staria is the little wind up robots and
robots
stuff.
that had
Yeah,
the people inside the heads of them.
yeah. Hell,
Yep.
my damn gift was poop. Cause I can remember when I got my shit, I was like, man, I should have kept what I gave. Cause hell, I wanted that Staria my damn self.
Yeah, I remember those guys. But you fast forward just a little bit further, it became one of those things where, you know, people knew that you could do this, and they were wanting you to do it on a regular. And it was one of those things that it came natural. The more and more I did it, the quicker I became at it, and the better I became at it. And that's how I made one of my best friends at the time, Michael Glover. Me and him started out doing that as a young age and continued on to do it on all the way on to high school and whatnot. It was there where we started going to comic book conventions and starting to talk to these artists and looking at these guys, going, man, we could possibly do this if we just keep doing it. And we had so many people saying, hey, you guys can do this. Y'all on that level. And we had a lot of success with local talents that were getting promoted, from the area which we were in. They were going on to these companies. Andy Price was one of the big guys that was doing like major movements with like Dark Horse at the time. He was doing Alien storyline, and his work was phenomenal. and we were following him. And then a local guy, another one that was a protege from Don Howard Studios, name was Cully Hamner. If you're not familiar with who this guy is, this is the guy that created Red, the comic book series, which was adapted to the movie, which Bruce Willis and this wide variety of cast members played.
Bruce
he got
Willis,
his note.
Helen Mirren,
Mm-hmm.
Morgan Freeman was in the first one.
Yep, that was his book that he created. But before he got to that point to where Hollywood started noticing his work, he started out doing caricatures with Don Howard Studios and making a name for himself. And that's when DC discovered him, and he got his major break doing a book called Green Lantern Mosaic. If you're not too familiar with that book, that's the book that where you had John Stewart at the time, I do believe. He was paralyzed for a little bit and learned how to walk all over again and whatnot. That was his big breakout book. And we went to a convention at the time that he was there. And we had like our portfolios and stuff up, and of course, you know, you're amped, you're feeling good about everything, and you got all this crowd support, you know, family, friends, and whatnot, saying you guys could do just as good as he can do. And we were waiting in line and was passing our work around, and people were like looking at our stuff and comparing our stuff and looking at his stuff. And we finally got to him and we asked him, hey man, is there anything you could, you know, tell the local guys pretty much? Any kind of, you know, advice you could give us to point us in the right direction to help us get to the point to where you are? And he turned and looked at us and said, I'm not going to tell you anything. It's going to take food out of my wife and kids' mouth.
Wow.
And I was like, what?
Wow.
At the time, I was like, and, you know, I was really upset, but my buddy was like, no, don't worry about it, man. We'll just get our stuff and we'll go on, you know. And I'm sitting there, you know, kind of distraught.
And cancel Green Lantern Mosaic from my pull list.
And we were kind of sitting there going, wow, you know. And my buddy was like, nah, man, if anything, this is a good thing because he feels like he must be threatened in the position that he's in, you know.
Or he was just an ass.
Well, later on, I met him again, and we talked about this, you know. This is later on, but I'm getting to that segment as well. It was kind of disheartening and kind of discouraging that, you know, a local talent at that time frame that made a name for themselves, and you got other local guys at that time that's trying to make a name for themselves. Kevin Stokes was one of the guys, along with me, Mikey, and a handful of other guys at that time. You know, Andy Price was, you know, very approachable. You know, he gave us good critiques and everything, and, you know, pointed us, you know, in the right direction on what to do and whatnot. But you're talking about somebody that's on that same age level as you know, making a name for yourself. And I think at that time frame, Rob Liefeld was just getting into it. You know, he had just hit it big and did the 501 commercial with the Levi's and was creating X-Force. And I think at the time he was 16, and we were close to his age, and we were looking at his work and whatnot. But anyway, it was kind of a blow to, you know, to the system for us. And it, you know, as anything, when you're all hyped up and you get to that point to where you reach a plateau, you're ready to go to that next level. Well, you know, I kind of got hit with that, and it kind of discouraged me and slowed me down, you know. And from that point, it was kind of like, you know, if I do this on the regular to the point to where I can, you know, still somewhat be entertained by it and still entertain the people by it, I'll keep doing it. So fast forward again, and we're still doing this, and we're still doing conventions. And a guy that threw a convention called Falcon we went to, and it was where we set up there and we're doing sketches and whatnot. He came over, was looking at our stuff. It's like, that's some pretty cool stuff, man. And he's like, yeah, you got books here for sale too I'm interested in. Well, he bought up half of my duplicates from all my Spider-Man stuff that I had, and later told me, it's like, hey man, my name is Ed, and Ed Walls, And I'm going to be opening up a comic book store pretty soon. You guys want to come by and check me out when you get a chance? That'd be pretty cool. And he's just making a name for himself. So I took it upon myself one of my days that I was out and about, went by the shop, checked the shop out. And he said, "What do you think about the shop, man?" I was like, "It's pretty cool, man." He's like, "Yeah, it's going to be even better once everything comes together. Um, if you want to hang out for a second, I'm going to lock you in here. I'm going to go get me some food and come back in a few minutes, and we'll go over some few things and look at, you know, stuff about the store, get some feedback on how you think, you know, this is going to work out." So I'm like a little snot-nosed kid, didn't know no different, man. I'm like locked in this store looking around and whatnot, flabbergasted about the whole idea that there's a comic book store that's close by that I'm going to be able to come in and shop at, you know. So I took it upon myself to just start looking through the long boxes that he had out, organized a few of them. He comes back and he goes, "Wow, did you organize these boxes right here?" I was like, "Yeah," you know, in the short amount of time that he was gone, you know. But it's something that I always did anyway with my books and stuff that I had when they were out of order, you know. It helped me stay focused on, you know, keeping everything categorized, organized by name, by genre and whatnot. He asked me if I wanted a job, and I was working from that point on, you know, in the industry. So that started, and fast forward 20 years after the fact, I was still working in it. And the only reason I'm not working in it now is because, well, I moved from Huntsville to Indianapolis. But even though I've moved away and moved back, every time I've moved away and moved back, he always bring me back into the fold because it's something that he started early on, met me, knew that I had the rapport with people, knew that I had the passion for the industry, and people kind of just gravitated to me to that point. And like I said, I've been a fan since I can remember, and it's always been a part of my life. And I can't imagine it even to this day. Even though I'm not working at a comic book shop per se, I'm still doing stuff in that in that field, whether it be I'm doing freelance work, whether it be I'm doing character design, whether it be I'm doing stuff like we're doing right now. You
Yeah,
know,
you just kept that itch.
talking about the movies, talking about the cartoons, talking about the games, talking about anything that's related to these characters, these iconic characters, or the pop culture of it. And it's been in my blood, and it's like, I don't know. I mean, if I'm not doing it, I feel like I'm missing out on something. So
Well,
that's kind of where I am.
well, let people know about Shoebox Heroes.
Oh, Shoebox Heroes came about um, over the years when me and Mikey were actually developing all these different types of characters at the time that we were doing of our own. Image exploded on the scene, and that was like our thing that we wanted to do was create our own characters and eventually go into that direction. And the first time our attempt of doing so, we came across this guy. I think his name is Mike S. Miller. A couple of our buddies and I went to Dragon Con. We started going to Dragon Con on the regular, and I was like 15 years solid going to Dragon Con and meeting up with different people, different artists, different writers, and, you know, passing out our portfolios and people critique them and getting feedback and going back to. And my buddy Cliff slipped Michael S. Miller one of our portfolios, and he was like, waved us over, and I'm like, that's Mike Miller, you know, he's asking us to come over to his booth. And so we walked over there, and he's like, "Hey man, you guys do this?" And you know, me being, you know, kind of somewhat recluse of who I was going to be showing my stuff to.
How
I'm
the
like,
hell did
"Man,
you
how
get my
did you get
stuff?
a?" Yeah, and he was like, "This guy said that you've been doing this, man, for quite some time, man. He's like, you're on the par of doing this on a professional level." I was like, "Well, you know, I'm still trying to figure out, you know, ins and outs about this industry." He said, "Well, in order for you to get jobs, steady jobs, for one, you know, if you can do sequential work and do that on a regular basis and manage to maintain the quality of work that you're putting out, somebody will pick you up. Not only that, you got to get your work out. You can't be a recluse, doing this and expecting, you know, to get an opening if not as many people out here aren't seeing it. He said a better way for you to do that is if you're doing commission pieces or if you're doing pin-up art or fan art. He's like, you see this wall, everything I've got right here, people come up and they pay me to draw, you know, certain things that they want to see. And there's no reason why you can't do it. He's like, I've been doing it here for quite some time, and your artwork is on caliber of some of these professional guys, that are in here right now. And he said, the best advice I can give you is start your own web page, start doing, these prints, and build a fan base. Once you get that fan base, all these submissions that you're putting in and you're not getting any kind of answers for, well, once these numbers start coming in and people start getting a following for you, they'll see you. They'll reach out to you. They'll come to you, and that was like the most solid advice that I was given at that time. And I hadn't had a chance to see him in the past 2 years. I hadn't had a chance to go to any of the conventions, but he's on Facebook. I hadn't reached out to him as of late, but a lot of the sound advice that he was giving us at the time was working.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came across this guy at the time. My son was getting into the industry, and he was like, Dad, there's all kind of superheroes right here. There's all kind of supervillains right here. There's all kind of stuff that's going on in comic books and cartoons, but none of these characters look like me. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, there's no mixed superheroes. I don't see anybody that looks or resembles anything like me. And at that time, there was no Miles.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything that, that he could identify with. And Ray Anthony was the guy that at the time frame was doing this book called Midnight Tiger. And we managed to find, I think, like the first 2 issues of this book. And I put my son on it, and he was just blown away by it. And, it was at that time frame that where he had somebody that kind of looked or resembled him that was a main character. And it was great. I reached out to him, and I'm like, hey, my son is a real huge fan of Midnight Tiger. And I just started asking him questions, on Facebook. And he was really approachable. I didn't think he was going to answer me back. I'm sitting here 10 minutes into it, waiting for him to respond. He's like, hey, how's it going? And I explained to him, my son is a fan of Midnight Tiger. How did you come up with this character? Well, he again was stating the same thing. He was like, well, there wasn't enough representation at the time frame for characters of color that he felt like they had a positive impact on people. And he came up with this particular character at that time frame because there wasn't no one around. And I was like, well, how did you go into developing him, to the point to where people can relate to certain things that was going on with the character. People can identify, certain scenarios that they've gone through with the character. And it was like, it's no different than Spider-Man. The average, white American kid had the same kind of problems Pete was having. Yeah. He said he took that same particular concept with the black kid and incorporated it into a comic book. So I was, 30 minutes into the conversation. And that's when I broke down to him and I started telling him, hey, man, I've been developing all these different types of characters, and I'm wanting to come up with something, to represent, something for my son, too, as well. And he was like, well, he gave me a lot of pointers on the ins and outs and about to do it. And that 30 minutes became an hour. And I was like, I appreciate all the info that you give me. I'm sorry for taking up too much of your time. And he was like, no, a lot of people I don't get to talk to a lot of people about the ins and outs about, the industry. And when I get a chance to, especially somebody that's trying to have an impact on the industry, if there's anything I can do that can help you along the way, I'll do so. And that's how our friendship became. Anytime I have ever had a issue with anything or a question about anything as far as direction on where to take this or developing something or just in general how the industry works, Ray has always been informative and never a burden to him. He's always just like, just give me a minute and I'll I'll get back with you. And just like that, it usually is. Boom. And we've been friends ever since.
Yeah,
Now,
everybody needs a mentor.
yeah. So now we were getting ready to grow the brand and try to come up with something. And our biggest thing was, you know, there was no big barrier. There's no color barrier with any other character stuff that we're developing. So we came up with this concept of Colorblind Studios, where we were going to develop a wide variety of superheroes and supervillains from all walks of life. It didn't matter if you were Asian, Caucasian, um, Latin American, uh, just all walks of life. You're going to find characters in our universe that pretty much look like you in some form or fashion. And it was taken out pretty good, so we incorporated everything that Mike S. Miller was telling us and Ray Anthony was telling us, and it was working out great.
Well,
But
hold on a second before you go too far from that, because I want to ask you a question.
Mhm.
Why do you think that's important? And the reason why I ask this is because you can find a lot of people that are critics of the industry and stuff like that don't really seem to get why that makes a difference. I mean, they get that, they figure, well, everybody can like Spider-Man, which is true. Everybody can like Spider-Man. But just give the audience just a little, at least your opinion on why you think it's important that people find people on occasion that look and remind them of themselves.
Well, you don't want anybody to feel alienated out of the industry. Basically, it's almost as if they're fans of a particular genre, and those fans that you have that are fans of that particular genre that don't have any representation of them make up a, a tremendous amount of fan base. And you know, at the time frame, that wasn't a big thing for me. But later on in life, when I realized all these characters that I was looking up to and everything, when you see a little 7-year-old black kid running around with a Superman mask on, and you always wonder, uh, that 7-year-old little black kid is running around with a Superman mask on, but you don't have anything that's any representation of them. And just imagine if you could have something that's like that. Um,
Because
the,
I mean,
the,
you see that often, like in the cosplay community. It's
mm-hmm,
kind of weird. You'll have people that they're not real big on there being like black characters, but by that same token, they don't want black people cosplaying as like Captain America. You know what I mean?
right, right. Um, I think it's important to have that representation because it's going to grow a whole nother genre, a whole nother fan base that hasn't been tapped yet. You know, just like anything that you're dealing with in the world, you if you can find that niche that hasn't been tapped, it's a viable market, and we make up so much of the market. For us to not have any kind of representation, it's like a slap in the face. And to give you a good example why, and understanding just how much of the market we make up for, when when Black Panther was first announced as a movie going into production, you had any and everybody from all walks of life chomping at the bit that couldn't wait to see what was gonna unfold on the big screen.
Yeah.
And when it actually happened, not only did you see representation for that character, all kind of costumes, all kind of people from all walks of life, and it was just like a snowball effect. It was like something that was long overdue. It's something that we really and truly all needed, to have somebody in a positive sense. Here's a character that's not a drug dealer. Here's a character that's not hooked on drugs. Here's a character that's not, been
A
in
side
jail. That
sidekick.
has been a sidekick. He's on par with Reed Richards as an intellect. He has a kingdom that he's, over. Not to mention, you know, this cool ass suit that's
Yeah.
made out of that's just made out of this uber cool material. And this is the thing that gets me. When you touched upon the subject when you were saying that they didn't want us cosplaying as Captain America, they didn't want us cosplaying as
Anybody
any
white.
of these white
Anybody
any of
white.
these white cast.
And,
But I thought yeah.
yeah, because I was about to say, because, if you want to see some crazy crap, go on Facebook on some of these people, when they cosplay as somebody black and read the comments. I dare you.
Yeah. And the coolest thing that let me know that we made that corner and hit that market, when you see a little 7-year-old white kid that's running around here claiming that he's the prince of Wakanda.
Yeah,
That
basically a Nick
lets you,
Cage.
yeah, that lets you know right there that, hey, we've made it, and we need more representation like this in the light. So I think it's very important that we should have representation of positive characters of color from all walks of life. And Black Panther is just proving that,
Yeah, that's
just how much of
that's the only film in my life that I've seen my father go to more than once. He saw Black Panther 3 times, almost fainted.
well, that's what you got to look at. You're talking about generations upon generations upon generations upon generations upon generations with no representation.
Well,
And it's important.
I will play devil's advocate because I know when somebody hears this, they'll go Blade. The trick is Blade was in like the late 90s,
Mm-hmm.
and I think in some things they don't. I don't know if that's supposed to be enough or just what that argument is, but I know when you say that, I will go on and throw out Blade. I will throw out Hancock. But by that same token, yeah, it's been a decade. It's been at least a
Yeah.
decade since Hancock, and hell, and Blade was like 98. So
Okay. So when you're talking about those two representations right there,
and they both were hits, which was always like mad weird to me is why they wouldn't do more black heroes. I'm really in that spot right now because you go, okay, every time you do a black superhero, barring Catwoman, it's a hit.
mm-hmm.
Yet getting them to do black heroes in films almost like pulling teeth.
Well, not even just that. It's not even just that. When you got like the top billing director that's trying to tell a story, not just a story, but something that's a key factor from history.
Yeah, that's true.
And he can't get backings.
And what we're talking
The
about is
back,
George Lucas when he tried to do when he was trying to do Red Tails. Yeah, he couldn't get a studio to back it. And this is George Star Wars Raiders of the Lost Ark Lucas
yes,
can't get a film done because it's got black heroes in it. Real life, that ain't no BS. The Tuskegee Airmen are real, and he couldn't get a movie done about them.
so he took the money himself.
Yeah.
And invested in himself. And again, the thing of it is, if you give us something of quality that's a good representation, it's going to make money regardless, because the way we spoke when Black Panther came out,
Well, it was an event.
it was, yes, but you got to look, when I say the way we spoke when that came out, we spoke with our money.
Oh yeah.
We went to go see that. We went to go see that movie not once, not twice, but 3 times, and then we went to go see it again.
Or in my
and we
case,
took
10.
that. We took people that didn't get a chance to go see it, and we took kids, underprivileged kids that didn't have the money to go see these movies. We were doing stuff to make sure that they go see this movie because it was the first movie with all black casting that were being portrayed in a positive manner. Not none of this stereotypical boys in the hood, Friday, day after Friday, soul plane. Wasn't anything on that level.
I will say this though. Uh, a lot of times people go, well, Black Panther had an all black cast, and I always bring up this. It had Black Panther had more white people in it than Avengers had black people in it.
Correct. Because it felt like, I don't know, I guess it felt like the movie wouldn't be able to sustain.
Well, the thing is, they originally had it forecast to do opening weekend about the same money as like Doctor Strange. They had it for 90 million. They had it projected for $90 million, and then when the pre-sale tickets came and they hit so hard, then they went, well, okay, it's gonna do 120 opening weekend, which would have been like $1 million more than Spider-Man: Homecoming did. And I was still like, yeah, y'all playing this movie weak. I believe to this day they play Black Panther weak, or they try and put an asterisk on it some kind of way. Well, because it made $700 million of black people's money some kind of way. That shit ain't green and don't spend or something. Nobody ever puts that asterisk on things like Titanic. Titanic was pretty much made by teenage white girls, but nobody goes Titanic. They don't downplay Titanic's success because it was popular with teenage white girls. But Panther's popular with black people, but like it's some kind of fluke, or it's like it's some odd something. When you look at the box office, most black led movies at the very least will hit if not number one, close to number one on their debut weekends. Hell, Medea ain't got a million movies because they don't make money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is due to. I think a lot of that's due to stereotypes, and I'm finna explain that to you, because the average white kid at the time frame that when I was coming up was heavily into all this stuff. They would approach the matter that if a black kid came up and started talking about Batman's lineage, Superman, the Superman lineage, the first thing that came into their mind frame was like, how does this black kid know about these superheroes? And they would ask them, you watch football? It's like, yeah. So who's your favorite running back? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or they would expect you to know more about sports, about people that were playing in sports, or just that stereotypical thing. It's one of those things where, and I think it's still prevalent to this day.
Yeah,
they're thinking along the lines of that we're thinking about sports, gangsters, rap, this, that. At the moment that you find out that they're blurs, which are black nerds, it's like, whoa. You mean to tell me you guys like Superman? You guys like Batman? Yeah. We like all these characters, but we also like these particular characters that aren't getting the proper, representation that they need.
Yeah, nothing makes me happier than some chump trying to challenge me on my nerd cred. It's literally like, man, did you literally just walk into hell with gasoline draws on?
And that's how me and this Joker met, because he is what I consider a zombie. When I say a zombie, a Marvel zombie, it's like, I don't know if you've ever watched the Transformer movie where you had Shia LaBeouf was going on and ranting and raving like he was counting out all these different types of algorithms and writing out all these problems that he was speaking in Cybertronian and everything. That's what I think about when I ask Todd a question pertaining to Marvel. He goes into this mode and he goes to like this Rolodex and digs out all these facts. And it's like, jeez, where did you get this from? Oh, I read a lot. You know?
I get to, hell, I can remember a many damn time you calling me or waking me up back when I was working third shift. Hey, Todd, how many Captain Americas have they been? I was like, man, if I could crawl through this damn phone on your ass.
And I'm at work, I'm at work, and that was like the coolest thing too, because I'd be at work at the shop, and somebody would hit me with something if I didn't know anything about it, or if it's a character I didn't follow. But like, Todd, I got a question for you, right quick. He's like, I'm gonna start charging your ass on these, bro. You at work making a dime off of my knowledge. I was like, yeah, it'll come back to you. But yeah,
yeah, let's get
we
back
kind of
on.
got sideways
We
on
gotta
that.
get back on
But
subject. But
yeah,
I also want your opinion since we were on this part about representation and stuff like that. The rumor is they're getting Robert Downey Jr. may come back and basically play Jarvis to Riri Williams.
why?
We were pro. Oh Lord, we were pro representation. But what do you think about the swaps? I think we did that on mine about what I think about them. So I'm going to ask the stable pillar of the community father too. What do you think about if we want representation, but are you good with? Do you want an original character? Do you want somebody with agency, or do you want race swap Tony Stark, race swap Jimmy Olsen, race swap you know
Well, I've always been known for my analogies. So let's just say I've got a cut across my forearm right now that's going to require me to have 16 stitches.
Okay.
Okay, that cut's been deep. You can see all the way down to the white meat. It's not nothing pretty. I got to get this fixed. So for the time being, until I can make it to the emergency room, I use what is considered super glue to hold it together to stop it from bleeding.
Okay.
And basically what the industry is going through right now is we've been cut so deep with these characters to the point that where people have came along and not paid any attention to the history of the character, but they consider themselves fans. When I say the history of the character, their predecessors before them came up with these stories that already formed and shaped them for who they are right now. And they've told their story. Now it's up to us to take what they've already laid out for us and pay homage to that and continue the journey for the character. They don't do that. Then they take and try to make the character something that it's not, which that never was the intention when the original predecessors originally created these characters. They gave you the blueprints to follow, but yet to tell stories to continue on developing the character. They're not. They're trying to take it and make, like, say, for instance, they're trying to take and make Tony Stark, let's see, he's basically Marvel's Batman, but they're trying to take and make him, I don't know.
Well, truthfully, the MCU did a long way to make Tony Stark likable because in the book, yeah,
he was a
the kind
douche.
of the snappy Robert Downey Jr. funny, yeah, that Tony Stark was a stick in the mud. Hell, he was like
Yeah,
Hal.
I was
They
trying
made
to.
the same mistake with Hal Jordan. That's the reason why people didn't gravitate to her. Ryan Reynolds
Reynolds.
was trying to do basically a Robert Downey Jr. to a DC stick in the mud, Hal Jordan, and it just didn't work. Yeah, though
I'm
that
glad.
character was nothing like that in the book.
I'm glad you found the adjective that I was looking for because I was searching, man. I'm like, what were they trying to do to this cat? But basically, they were trying to take it and make it their own creation.
Yeah,
And
which in Marvel's case
and
they
that,
did. That
and
so wasn't Tony.
and once you take all this into consideration, that's a cut and that's a slap in the face of all the people that supported that character for years. And they pretty much started gravitating towards other things because it's not something that they grew into or grew to know of. It became something and it evolved into something totally different, and the meaning wasn't there anymore for the character. So they had to do something drastic in order to fix that. But how can you fix something that's been cut so deep and been wounded so bad? Well, it's real easy. You give them a temporary fix to a market that doesn't have anything along those lines and give them a carbon copy of the original. But we'll either race swap it or we'll gender swap it. But at the end of the day, that super glue that I've got on this cut of my forearm is only temporary, and you know going into it that it's only temporary. It's not going to have any long-standing, lineage. 10 years from now, people are not going to be talking about Riri. 30 years from now, people are not going to be talking about Riri.
That was
You
that
know?
was that was an argument went that went hard enough. Hell, on my personal page, the hell I wish I'd put it on the site, but it that's at least my point is that I can't get across is I'm really not satisfied with knockoffs. I was
Right.
I would take a sidekick, I would take a war machine, I would take a Falcon, because you were with me when we saw Winter Soldier. I was like, holy shit, this movie made me actually like Falcon.
Yeah.
But Falcon's a sidekick, and it's kind of your analogy, if I'm starving to death and all I can find is this, 2-year-old saltine on the ground, I'll eat it because I'm starving. But if you give me the choice between that same saltine and a T-bone steak, yeah, I ain't touching the damn thing. And that, for me, that was
Right.
Black Panther. Once I've had Black Panther, I ain't really satisfied with knockoffs, and like I said, our whole thing on that was a big, is Riri Williams a knockoff? And I'm like, yeah, she's truthfully not even a race gender swap Tony Stark. She's really just a gender swap war machine
Well,
because she became basically Tony's sidekick. She's not equal to Tony. I don't care how smart she is.
right.
Her
Right.
whole thing was she reverse engineered Stark tech. Oh, so she's smart. Yeah, but she didn't create the tech. She just reverse engineered Tony's stuff. Tony is still the one in the Ironheart book, while he was dead as her AI, he was her mentor. He was the one showing her how to be a superhero, which meant she's not his equal. She's his student, but she's not his equal.
All right.
And if you're not the equal, then you don't really have agency. Luke was never on par with Yoda until he became a master himself.
Right.
But that's off on my tangent. It's about me.
Right.
How do you feel?
But
How
getting
you feel about the swaps? Are you satisfied with the swaps? Do you think?
no,
Oh,
no, because you don't. Reason being, you really don't. The character doesn't grow. The character is growing in another character's shadow. The character is not its own character. It's the
knockoff.
story. It's the story of a stand-in. It's kind of like, yeah, it's a cheap fix for a bleeding wound. Just like I was explaining, it's a cheap fix for a bleeding wound, and it's gonna have to take stitches to fix that. And when I say stitches, you're gonna have to come in with something fresh, something new, something better than what we've already seen, and something original in a positive light.
Yeah,
It's
because
gonna take those.
yeah.
It's gonna take.
Go ahead.
It's gonna take those types of representation that's going to fix this bleeding wound, and we don't have it in the books. And even to this day, and this is the thing that gets me, the industry has came along from so far to the point to where we shouldn't even be even talking about
No,
representation in a positive light. But
no, you shouldn't.
it just seems like to me that they just can't grasp the concept of developing an original character of color that's just as smart as or even smarter than Batman.
But that's the trick. Is they did, and they killed him off because you had Orpheus. Orpheus was
Yeah,
smart. Orpheus was stumping Batman, and he had the Orpheus Rising miniseries, and
hmm
then he popped up again. I forget which crossover that was. He popped up, and then they killed him.
it was City Fall. It was either City Fall
Yeah, it was
or
one. It was yeah. It was one of those. It was either No Man's Land or something. But when he
yeah.
shows up again, yeah, they just kill him. So it was like, well, you just took that character, and just completely threw it away. I mean, hell, on Marvel's case, they'll go, well, we're gonna do Riri Williams for representation, or we'll give you Falcon Cap as Captain America. But Falcon's not the first black Captain America, and he's far from the best one.
hmm
They don't do the Bradleys. Isaiah Bradley had a compelling story. Don't want to deal with that one. You had Josiah X that was born with the super soldier serum in him. Don't want to do to him. You don't want to do Eli from the Young Avengers. Eli Bradley, who was Isaiah's son, who was stronger because he was a physical specimen beforehand. Hell, had better powers than Steve. He could outrun helicopters. Hell, he was super fast, super strong. He was bulletproof. He had super senses. But they don't want to deal. They don't want to deal with him. They give you the guy that talks to birds, and then go, well, now you got representation. Yeah, but my representation sucks.
I'm gonna give you a good example of just how crucial what you were talking about right there. Just how crucial an announcement of that on that caliber of them having that type of representation. Remember when they was talking about rumor of Will Smith being a Captain America?
Yep.
Remember that?
Yep.
And you remember the controversy that was surrounding that? Captain America's not black.
Yep.
Captain America's they never shouldn't even talk about this. And then you start to read about this book called The Truth.
Yeah, and the whole reason why they did The Truth was because it wasn't Bendis, it was Millar. Mm-hmm. They had originally talked about Captain America being black in Ultimates, and Mark Millar had a fit, and Quesada heard it and was like, well, why in the hell? It actually makes better historical sense for Captain America to be black because they wouldn't be experimenting on white people.
Yep.
And that's where the book The Truth and the Bradleys came from. Was all based on Mark Millar having a fit at the thought of a black Captain America.
Black Captain America.
Yeah. But my thing is, you never get. I'm not a fan of swaps because one, it limits the character, and two, it keeps you from getting. In my opinion, it keeps you from getting people that are out there. So you can't have Rage, you can't have Spectrum, you can't have the Blue Marvel, you can't have Night Thrasher, you can't have Silhouette, you can't have Prowler, you can't have Rocket Racer, you can't have Cardiac, you can't have none of the black folks that exist in the Marvel universe. None of them can get a push. Heaven forbid you create somebody new and add to that. We're gonna give you this knockoff. And it's by its very nature, it's inferior. I said it in my interview, the Sam Wilson run of Captain America literally could have been called the inferior Captain America. Because nobody can truthfully read that book and go, he's a better Captain America than Steve Rogers.
Or be a little kid going,
I want to be him.
I could be him.
Well, hell, it's not so much I could be him. Do I want to be him?
Right.
You want to be the dude that talks to birds that's getting his ass kicked every issue? I mean, and that's the thing. It's truthfully, to me, it's a bad representation is as racist as no representation at all.
Correct. Because
one has you absent and the other one has you inferior.
Inferior, yep.
You know, they don't go, well, I'm going, and that goes really across the board. They don't replace folks with people that's better than the original. The only place that I've kind of seen that done is like Mr. Terrific in at DC, because you know they have a thing of legacy characters. Yeah, Michael Holt is superior to that original Mr. Terrific. He's smarter, he's a better fighter, he's superior to that cat. It's not a race swap, but Wally West was faster than Barry Allen. You know, they had a thing where, you know, you could get a superior version. Marvel ain't giving you superior. Jane Foster's Thor is not superior to the Odinson. She's just not. You know, and that's even with them trying to Mary Sue the hell out of her. She still ain't better than, the stories wasn't better. The crap she was, look, with her, the hammer will fly around and do tricks. I invite you to go read damn near any Avengers from the 60s with Thor in it. Thor used to do tricks with Mjolnir all the damn time. When he threw Mjolnir, it only flew in a straight line and straight back if he wanted it to. It would fly around people and dizzy them and all kinds of crap. He used to do that on the regular. But if you're not
Yep.
a new, but if you're a new fan, you know, somebody, one of these cats from the movies that never actually read a book, hell, you don't know that. Oh no, see, she does this. Yes, they didn't even give her new tricks to pull.
Right. But getting on to like the representation of all these different types of characters in a positive light, when we, like I said, when we originally formed Colorblind Studios, that was our intent, and it was working out great. But like, you know, all great things, you know, when you start out on it, it goes really good. But one thing led to another. Um, Mikey had issues. I was still moving forward, trying to move forward with it, and we hit a plateau to where Colorblind Studios kind of just stopped, and I was kind of like stuck because this is something that me and my buddy was doing, and I wanted to continue on doing it, but I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to do it unless I was doing it with him, and I had pretty much had given up on trying to to push these characters.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, I was still drawing, as you guys know, because you guys would come to the house and talk about your characters that you were working on. I even did out one of your characters for one of the role playing games, and it was like, you know, you were like, man, well, what are you gonna do with this? And I'm like, well, just throw this in the shoebox. And he's like, you got shoeboxes of characters? And I'm like, yeah, got tons of these things that people hadn't seen, and you know, more and more people started to see these characters that we have been developing, you know, at a young age. And even at a young age, I was coming back to these characters again at an older age and modernizing them and updating their storyline and updating, you know, pretty much any and everything about the character so they still could have that type of representation in that time frame.
Yeah.
And a lot of people look at my characters, look at my original designs for these characters, and they say, you were a huge fan of the Image movement. I was like,
yep,
you're right, I was. I was,
pockets
because
and buckles everywhere.
I was like, I was, because this is the genre that I grew up on when heroes were heroes. You know, these guys, Mark Silvestri, Jim Lee, Jim Valentino, Eric Larson, Todd McFarlane, Rob Liefeld, Walsh Patatio, all those guys were doing the stuff that I'm trying to do right now. They were ahead of the curve. When I say ahead of the curve, they already had representation of these characters. Hell, Todd McFarlane's character was Al Simmons, you know.
Yeah.
And
at the time was the highest selling comic with a black lead hero in it. Yeah.
Exactly.
It may still be, truthfully. I don't know if anything ever toppled Spawn #1 or not.
But all these characters that they were developing at that time frame, they had every you know, representation of somebody from all walks of life in them. And I remember when Jim Valentino was doing Shadowhawk, man, and when he took that helmet off and you found out everything that was going on with that character. If you hadn't read Shadowhawk, you don't know who Shadowhawk is. Read those first volumes you need to read those.
You're missing out.
Jim Valentino's original character, Shadowhawk. And I think to this day and age, if they were really about that movement and trying to give representation of a character, you know, that's on par with Batman, do a Shadowhawk movie. Do a Shadowhawk movie with the budget of a Batman movie. Do a Night Thrasher movie with the budget of a Captain America movie, with the caliber of those type of directors. You know, if you really wanted to have that.
New Warriors had some of everybody, but you know, when they were talking about doing like a New Warriors, I think it was a TV show. They picked like some of the most garbage characters. You know, they picked that garbage team that got killed like at the beginning of Civil War.
And I'm glad you touched upon
all that crap.
I'm glad you touched upon that. I'm gonna sidestep a minute and then I'm gonna jump back to the subject again. But that's something that's I don't understand. When anytime there's anything that's dealing with, you know, representation of a minority character, they always seem to not put as much quality, clarity, energy as they will put into like a next chapter for Amazing Spider-Man. If you look at, let's say, um, Spider-Man has got tons of volumes of
Yep.
different chapters of number one issues, and every time they relaunch Spider-Man, they put like the top billing writer on this book. They put like the top billing artist on this book. They put like the top billing editor on this book. But when they come out and they say, we're going to give you guys a story that you've never heard of, we're going to give you the truth, the real Captain America. And then you look and see who's writing it. It's like, who is this guy?
Yep.
And then you look at the artwork
And it was
the
hot
personality.
garbage.
And it's like, you got something that's monumental. You got something that's never been done before. You got something that's on the caliber that's gonna be a staple in the industry's history of that character, and you cheapen it by not putting the same kind of quality, clarity, or giving it the kind of respect that it's due as you did when you relaunched Spider-Man 35 times.
Well, they sabotage it. They sabotage it. They sabotage it from the very beginning.
No, it's I'm gonna go back again. It goes back to that beginning when you were talking about that nasty, rotten ass cracker that that's all you got to eat.
Yeah.
And that's basically what they're giving you, because you haven't had anything again on that along those lines of that caliber of that steak. So they give you that. It's like you want something to eat, but this is what we're gonna give you.
Well, where I'm saying that it's sabotage from the beginning is they know that shit it's not gonna be a big hit because it don't look good. I mean, when you saw that, because the first shot of Isaiah Bradley was that Joe Quesada drawn cover for Wizard magazine.
That
Where
is
he's
sold
in
out.
shadow, and it sold out, and hell, they made posters of it and all kinds of crap. And then when Truth #1 came out, it looked like pure shit.
And everybody was disappointed because I was
Horribly
at the shop.
Horribly disappointed.
I was at the shop when people were coming in and asking for that Truth
Red, white, and black.
It was a variant cover Wizard. It wasn't the standard Wizard cover. It was like a variant cover. People were coming in and buying only those variant covers, and they had like a poly bag with a poster of that in it. You know, and I still got one of those to this day. And people were like coming in and people were asking for that book. They wasn't asking for just Wizard. They were asking for the Wizard with the black Captain America on the front. You know. But yeah, it doesn't get that same kind of energy as they would put into a character that they've already, developed to the point to where it's already been established. And again, getting back on that subject of, positive representation. It's to me, it just seemed like they're not getting the right people to write about these things, and they get these people who can't relate to these characters that are writing these characters. You understand what I'm saying? How can you write about a black character that grew up in the South, and he had to deal with the fact that he had to save bigots? He's got this great power and he's got this great responsibility, and he was born in the South, where pretty much him being who he is outside this mask, he has to deal with, all types of crap.
Yeah, I got a Puerto Rican friend on Facebook that doesn't like Miles Morales. I think he liked the cartoon, but he always had a complaint with Miles Morales in the comics because he said, he doesn't feel Puerto Rican to me at all. And I was like, yeah. I can see that.
Well, that's my thing. When you're dealing with the representation of these characters, you need to have people from that walk of life that knows what representation means to them. You know what I'm saying? If you're gonna have this character that's Hispanic, then you need to have somebody that either is doing research on a Hispanic family, or they have some kind of heritage that's dealing with that topic, and let them write about it. Or you find somebody that's a successor or somebody that's been successful with a novel or a story that's pertaining to somebody from that walk of life. They don't. They take you know
Well, Marvel's
just
I'd have to say though, Marvel's thing now is they've got that basically to the complete opposite. Because I know the lady that was writing Ironheart, she got the job because she looked like the character,
right.
and it was. And hell, I have to tell you the truth, her version's a hell of a lot better than Bendis's. And Bendis created the character, and he had like mommy's little sociopath running around. The character was not likable. Where I think her name's Eve Ewing. Eve came in and fixed that. It. I am not a fan of rereads, but I read the book, and yeah, when they changed writers, it got better. It just
Right.
did.
But getting back on it again, the name Shoebox Heroes came about when all my friends started going through these boxes of these characters and going, man, you should still try to do something with these. And I would give people, the backgrounds of these characters, and they were like, some of these stories, man, you need to write these down and get them on paper so people can see them, because right now is a time frame where people can actually be willing to support something like this, and you got quality characters here. Why not do it? So I set out to do this, and I kind of was wearing two hats at the time, and I was like, pull out the quality of work of art like I've been doing, or sit back and write stories and help further develop these characters and tie into creating this universe. It's like you go to Burger King and you got the Whopper and the Whopper Jr. Everybody knows the Whopper and the Whopper Jr. are going to be good. Well, if you start taking on multiple things, a fish sandwich, a chicken sandwich,
The taco.
tacos, you don't go to Captain D's for chicken. It's a great little seafood place for a reason. So you're either going to be an artist and be successful with the artwork, or you're going to be a writer and be successful on the writing side of it. But you can't do well at both. And being an artist versus a writer, I'm here to tell you, I can come up with some concepts pretty quick, some character developments pretty quick. But to keep people interested in the life stories of these guys, it takes some time to do that. So when I started approaching it this go around, I was like, you know what? I mean, I can continue to do the artwork side of it, and then just do a brief synopsis of the character, and then give somebody else a chance to help further develop it and run along with it. And I hadn't came across too many people that's been willing to do that.
That's because you write about half of it yourself. You just don't write it down. I've been telling you that for years. You don't write it down.
I have in the past few years that I've been writing a lot of these things down. I've been recording a lot of these things now, because technology is wonderful. It's nothing like putting a microphone into something and clicking it and just going this rant about a character that I developed and label it, stick it on the CD and put it in the CD holder. Then when I go back to developing more stories of the character, I can pull this CD up and listen to the stuff that I already got, or use it as a means for somebody else that's coming along with the character. Like here's Cutthroat, and here's a disc that's pertaining to the origin story of Cutthroat, But I had almost given up on it, to the point to where I was on DeviantArt talking to different people. And there again, I started back talking to Ray Anthony, reaching out to him. Like, he had hit a wall with Midnight Tiger, which, if you haven't heard, is coming back. And I'm stoked about it. He's really stoked about it. That's something I'm looking forward to, and then I can get back with Junior and let Junior know about that, because that's a character that he followed. But trying to maintain that momentum that I originally had starting out doing this became harder and harder. And then there's a guy that was online, and he started talking about my characters and everything, and I looked at his work from Brazil, and we started talking back and forth, and I was like, hey, man, you ever think about doing any commissions or anything like that? He said, yeah, I do a lot of commissions. And he was like, what do you got? You want me to do a Batman? You want me to do a Spider-Man? You want me to do a Hulk? I'm like, no, I got some original stuff. He goes, original stuff? I was like, yeah. It's like, I've got characters that I've been developing over the years, and I like your style of work. I want to commission you to do one of my characters for me and let me see what that looks like, man, you know? And I gave him one to do, and he was in awe with the design that I came up with, and he wanted to know more about the character. And we kind of built a friendship based off of that. His name is Paul Radix. If you get a chance to check out some of his work, he's on Facebook, he's on Instagram, and he was the one that pretty much gave me that new energy to go back into pursuing these characters and helping me flesh them out. You know, I commissioned him to do the redesigns while I've been sitting here in the background coming up with the stories, iconic stories for these characters, to create this source book and kind of introduce everybody to these characters and give each and every one of you guys out there a chance to pick and choose which one of these guys you want to see come into publication, and have you guys vote on it. You know, it's nothing like having a book full of an array of characters to choose from, and you find one that everybody agrees upon that really like and love, you know, this character, want to see this character go forward, and they all take and choose. They get to vote on which one they want to see in the publication, and that will be the one that going forward that we publish first. But like I said, with me commissioning Powell to do the designs for these characters, and we're putting these characters out there so people can see them, and I'm doing the origin stories behind them and giving people a chance to pick and choose on them, it's been phenomenal. I've had quite a bit of feedback, far more than what I've had over the years, because people want to see these type of characters. Not only these type of characters for representation, they want to see something new. I mean, it's Superman has been to the point to where people have bled him out, and there's nowhere else you can take this dude. The only other place you can take him is somewhere dark, and when you do that, that's not Superman anymore.
They can take him to the toilet.
I mean,
there's nowhere else to go but the toilet.
So people want to see these new characters, but the biggest challenge is creating a new character that's not a knockoff of Wolverine, creating a new character that's not a knockoff of Captain America, creating a new character that's not a knockoff of Reed Richards. That has been the challenge, because there's been so many different characters that's developed, but there has been so many different characters of representation of color that have been developed.
Well, the trick is, even Superman is a knockoff of hell. What was the name of the character? The Destroyer. That was where the Fortress of Solitude and all kinds of stuff came from. You know, even some of the characters that you look at now, you go, oh man, they're iconic, and they're this. Hell, Aquaman's a knockoff of the Submariner. He just is.
Right.
You know, so hell, Thanos is a knockoff of Darkseid. So even amongst, you know, the big boys, it ain't like they don't basically go, yeah, I'm gonna make this guy, but I'm gonna tweak him. You know, which is really all you have to do to get a copyright. Yeah, technically, you know, Superman's got 1 million clones. Everybody from the Blue Marvel to hell, Mr. Majestic. You know, there are 1 million Superman clones out there. So don't worry about that. Hell, just do something interesting with them.
And that's what I've been doing. You know, I think I've gotten to a point to where me and Powell's been doing really good with them, and getting them out there and getting more and more people to talk about them. That's that's the main goal right now. But the ultimate goal is to get them out there to where they're out there on a month-to-month basis being portrayed in a positive light and giving them or giving the audience representation that they need in a not just the sake of just for the sake of how do you put it, a token cookie, giving them a token cookie,
diversity cookie.
Yeah,
but the trick to that is just like we were talking about Shadowhawk. He told a good story, and hell, you didn't know what the hell Shadowhawk was until the end of until he took the helmet off.
Yep.
Spawn, you didn't really, you looked at Spawn, you didn't really know because hell, when he took his mask off, hell, he was Hamburger. You didn't really kind of know what in the hell Spawn was until that kind of stuff came up later. So my thing is, hell, if you tell a compelling story, hell, you tell a compelling story, and that's what's missing. You don't have a hell of a lot of compelling stories. You got a lot of shots at the diversity cookie that will get you like a blurb on CNN or Fox or wherever. Oh look, it's female Thor. Oh look, it's Black Aunt May. It's a cheap knockoff, and there's a reason why hell it don't last worth nothing because it's a gimmick, and it's a cheap one at that. They're not creating Warpath. Warpath was cool as hell, and it's almost like Marvel looked at Warpath and said, "Hell, this dude is getting he's getting as much love as Wolverine. Well, let's throw him off into limbo."
DC did that too. DC, they did that just to give you a general idea of why and how they managed to get Jim Lee. At one point in time, Jim Lee had the top-selling book in the industry, and it was outselling the Justice League. And the Justice League was the marquee book at the time frame. You had Justice League that was selling, you had Avengers that was selling, but you weren't supposed to have this independent company come along with this diverse group of characters, and they're outselling the Magnificent Seven.
Yep.
And they bought them out. they pretty much bought them out. It's like, look, you can't just come up in here and do this, man. This is Batman. This is Superman. This is the Flash. Who the hell is Backlash? Who the hell is Mr. Majestic? Who the hell is Taboo? I mean, and they bought them out.
My boy Black.
Yeah, and then not only that, you had Marvel and them do something similar to that with Malibu.
Yeah, they bought out Malibu hell just to get the coloring technique that they were using on the comics.
Yeah. So,
but we got to wrap up here for this show. But I'm going to give you the question that we give the other people that we interview. You got one character. Mm-hmm. You get to kill them off. They don't come back. They're gone. You whack them. They're gone forever. Show's over. Who you picking?
There's so many different ones that I could do. I mean, I've got three that I wanna do that to.
Can't pick. And I'm gonna
say,
what's your top one?
Come on.
What's your top one?
The top one would have to be Batman.
Nobody likes Batman.
Everybody likes Batman. Batman.
That man's got a church, for Christ's sake.
And the reason being, none of his characters and their supporting cast can grow while he's still alive. They're always going to be living in the shadow of the Bat. And not only that, nobody's going to be willing to step up in the Justice League and assume the role and take the reins if there's no Batman. Batman has been the damn driving pillar behind the Justice League since the Justice League has been thought of. At least since I've been into the comic thing. But you take that away and what they've got. Batman has been the brains. Batman has been the money. Batman has been the one thing, like Amanda Waller said, the human side of the human that's been able to sit at the throne with sit on the thrones and sit at the table with gods. They need something to keep them home, keep them whole, to keep them human. Otherwise, they're just going to be gods running around here doing godly things. But yeah, I'd have to say Batman would be the one that I would kill off, because I want to see how that universe, the impact on that universe that it will have, and I would like to see who would be the next big thing to step up and support the Justice League, which we already know who it is. Hell, it's going to be Nightwing, because I mean, but he can't be. Yeah, I mean, he grew up in that light from a young age. He's a carbon copy of Bruce, but to the point to where I still think he's still got.
Dick is still kind of human.
That's what I was about to say.
He's still kind of sane.
He still got. He still has some humanity left in him. Bruce didn't have that. Bruce had, money and a butler.
And he went out of his way to make sure that Nightwing didn't turn out like him.
Right. But ultimately, we've seen different variations, cartoons, stories of where, as many times as much as I admire this costume, I've grown to hate it. I've always tried to avoid being in the shadow of this, and now I'm stuck in this costume, having to follow suit with something that I don't totally agree with. At the same time, it's expected. But like I said, Batman would probably be the one I kill off, just to see what kind of an impact it would have on the DC universe as a whole.
I'm gonna have to start taking a tally of how many of who gets killed the most. And our 50th episode, we'll do one on why everybody hates this one character. Because I
don't hate him.
No, I'm just saying I think it's gonna be Batman. There's a lot of people when you ask them that, they go, Batman. Tired of his ass. But anyway, go ahead.
But you got to think about it. It's Batman. I mean, he's able to do things and get away with things that he shouldn't be able to do.
Yeah, the writers have basically made him a caricature of himself. It went from, you can't argue, you tell people all the time, hell, you realize Batman is basically a ninja detective. That's all he is. He's a ninja detective. That's it. Oh, no, but, Batman goes up against Jehovah. He don't need but 3 hours of prep time, and then, he can beat God himself.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing that made him so unique. He was obsessed with both. He had to be the best at both.
Well, the trick is, Batman back when I liked him, Batman would usually get his ass kicked in round one. Batman was that guy that came off, a lot of times would come off the ropes and win. But it wasn't. Now he's a caricature. Now it's, he goes up against Bane. Bane beats the living hell out of him. And then at the end of the fight, he headbutts Bane once and knocks him out because I'm Batman. Yeah, that wasn't. No, Batman was, in the 70s when I was a fan, was human. He was human. It wasn't no doubt if you went, who'd win in a fight between Batman and Superman? Yeah, Superman, because Superman is God and can fly around the planet backwards and reverse time and shoot rainbow beams out of his ass. Batman's a dude. He's a dude that wears a scary costume and he scares people. That's Batman. It ain't, no, now he's got the anti-God bat spray, and no, he's a guy, and he would often run into other people that would beat his ass. Joker has knocked him out and had him hanging above sharks and all kinds of shit. It's people. He would lose sometimes. The modern Batman can't lose. Period. He's the most superhuman human that I've ever seen. And truthfully,
Well,
that's kind of dull.
for all intents and purposes, I would have to say he's just Chuck Norris in a Batman costume.
He's a Chuck Norris joke in a Batman costume. You know, the rattlesnake bit Batman. 3 hours later, the rattlesnake died. You know, that kind of shit. He's a Chuck Norris joke in a Batman costume. Where before he was in the books, he was Bruce Lee that was a detective.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Oh, he could beat Wolverine? Yeah, Batman was one of those dudes that Wolverine slaughters by the 100. He don't run into a mutant super soldier with unbreakable bones and claws. Yeah, he loses that. Because Wolverine can take his shots, and Batman can't take but one. Wolverine get one good lick on him with them claws, it's over. Now, he gets infected with Joker serum and fights it off through sheer willpower. Can't turn into Joker cause I'm Batman. Yeah, cause I'm Batman has become like an excuse. The excuse called the writers can't write a compelling story, so cause I'm Batman is the Deus Ex Machina. It's just, Deus Ex Machina, it's cause I'm Batman. Well, I did it. Why? Cause I'm Batman. And the fandom goes, well, okay, that makes sense. I just ate poison food, but I didn't die. Why? Because I'm Batman. He's Bruce Willis in the last Die Hard movie, where he jumped out of the building, and you ain't sure that Bruce hit the water. You pretty much think he landed on the concrete, but his son hit. His son is obviously in the water, but Bruce is bone dry, so you ain't real. You kind of think he just jumped out of a building and landed on concrete and was fine.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway,
we're starting to break up really bad now.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting ready to wrap it up. So this has been this episode of Impulse. Our guest this week has been the responsible, the father of two, the creator of Shoebox Heroes, the upstanding nice guy, Tony the Hitman Horton.
You got more adjectives than Spidey.
What? Hell, you got to be the nice one because I'm the asshole. You got to have contrast, damn it. We need contrast. But that is. You're the father. You're the father, the creator, the 20-year comic veteran. And I'm that asshole, the single asshole that really don't care what you think. So say it works.
It works.
Yeah. So that's been our show for this week. And we will catch you later.
Peace.